Star here, author of Restaurant Strong, and today I will be interviewing Chef Dr. Mike. Now, Dr. Mike is the host of a new PBS series called House Calls with Chef Dr. Mike. He is also a cardiologist, a professional chef, and a professor of culinary medicine, the new field of culinary medicine at the University of Montana. You are going to want to watch this episode and then look at the links below with the promo to the new PBS series to if particularly you are a chef or a restaurateur who already or aspires to offer 100% natural ingredients and no processed ingredients in your cooking in the restaurant system, right? Or in the food system, however you want to look at it. What is culinary medicine trying to fix?
Well, really, what we want to address first is what the restaurants and what chefs, are serving on the plate. The pandemic, as you know, and your audience knows, was a huge challenge. I had so many friends who, ended up closing their restaurant during that period. And actually, that's one reason that we came up with something that we developed with the American Culinary Federation to try to help those folks. Because to give you an example, I have, friends and colleagues who, while they're not Michelin starred restaurants, supported local agriculture because they took the time to locally source their ingredients and work with their producers and provided their customers not $1,000 meals, but certainly in the same spirit of, hey, we're going to harvest local, support local, and bring these seasonal foods to you through our restaurants at different places in the country.
Right.
And while these folks were struggling to stay open, the drive-throughs, the chains, they were experiencing double-digit growth at a rate pre-COVID, because they were set up for takeaway, for drive-through.
Right.
And that people would think, hey, I'm going to go get this pre-done, ultra-processed food of pasta, through one of the takeaway chains, and it's pasta, and that's healthy because it's got tomato sauce, and I got a salad, that I'm putting this ultra processed dressing on. But in the public's mind, that was a healthy choice versus, a burger. And so, one of the things we created was something called the Cmac certification, which we talk about Michelin stars, is essentially a Michelin star for healthy food that's awarded through the American Culinary Federation. That lets the public know, hey, when I'm eating here, I'm getting these types of foods that are good for me because this kitchen cares about me as a customer, keeping me alive to come back. And so where our challenge is, how do we do that? And how do we do that for the restaurateur in a way that's economical, so that they can make money and sustain their kitchen? And then two, how do we help them get that word out so that the public knows when you're supporting that local restaurateur who is doing these things, is making that extra effort, going that extra mile, that you're, supporting something that's positive for the community, something that's good for the planet, and something that's good for you.
Right.
And it's sort of a everybody wins situation. And so those are our kind of our challenges, particularly get out there and let the public know when you go over here to this restaurant that's doing it this way, boy, this is a huge impact on your health. There might be 2 plates of pasta. The guy that's making it from water, eggs, flour, salt, that's what you want to eat. This guy that's, buying the boxes from Cisco and throwing it in the pot or the microwave, no, you don't want to support that endeavor.
I love that. So it's called the Cmac.
CMAK, and I can send you that link for folks.
What does that stand for? What does the MAK stand for?
Culinary Medicine Accredited Kitchen.
I love that. We should definitely send that to me, please. Everybody who's watching this, you should go to that link and study it. So if I want to, and of course, Dr. Mike, there are many restaurateurs that now that we're sort of understanding each other that do buy local, practice those sorts of practices, and it sounds like you're really trying to help them to better show the value of what they are doing, right?
Absolutely, Peter, because
Yeah,
when they're taking these local foods that are not ultra processed, and as we said, preparing those meals, those are how we want folks to craft their meals, to learn how to craft their meals. That's what we want them to eat from a culinary medicine perspective. So it's not about don't have a pizza. As you said, that's the old nutrient centric way of looking at it, where we take categories of food and we say, don't eat red meat, don't eat pizza, don't have a burger, and because they're bad. In culinary medicine, because we're looking at the first go of whether is this an ultra processed food, which in our study of culinary medicine, by the way, we have a very specific definition.
yeah,
It's based on what's called the NOVA classification that was developed actually at the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, has been adopted by the United Nations and many countries around the world. Unfortunately, not yet the United States, where there's a lot of pushback from the folks that basically make lots of ultra processed
right.
food to not go in this direction. But we have specific criteria, so we specifically can identify those foods. So it's sort of not just a loose term we're throwing
That's
around.
perfect. So let me dig into that.
Okay.
Let's say that I'm going to pose, and maybe we're not going to find the exact black and white because it's going to come down to individual cases. But let's say that we have restaurant A, okay, which is sourcing, you know, ingredients that are farmed locally. They know the farmer, they know the sourcing. It's everything's coming out of the ground basically, or feeding itself from the ground, right?
Mhm.
That's case A, and there's probably a lot more definition to that, but I'm just sort of big picture, right? Case B is I have a restaurant that does purchase from the large suppliers, okay, and so I'm buying from Cisco, for example, a lot of my ingredients because in my market I can't actually afford to purchase the local ingredients the way I would like to because of the cost of them and how that affects my price points and how that affects my ability to serve my market, right? So within that B, what I believe you're saying is you can get down to the individual ingredient level in the certification process to be able to determine, okay, even though this restaurant's buying a lot from food suppliers, they are eligible for CMAC because of the specific ingredients that they're purchasing. Is that it?
They could. There's a possibility. So if you're saying, I'm buying all my bulk spices
Right.
from Cisco
Yeah.
or Cheney Brothers or whomever you're using,
Right.
and I'm buying, my cleaning supplies from Cisco, and yeah, if you're buying your spices, you still may be eligible for a CMAC. If you're, and I'll give you a personal example. One of the restaurants that we ran when we went in, and we took over an existing restaurant and kind of scrapped what they were doing. They were making hollandaise sauce from a packet, so all they had to do was add hot water for
Right.
their instant hollandaise. Like, no, that you got to be able to make a hollandaise,
Right.
the old school way that actually includes real eggs,
Yeah.
and butter and sort of things like that.
And so is CMAC about certifying a restaurant entirely, or is it more granular in that? Can a restaurant that is moving in that direction get certain menu items certified?
No, it's sort of like a Michelin star, right? It's
Yeah,
all or none. So
it's all or
we
not.
don't say,
Okay.
yeah, we don't say this dish is a Michelin, but this
Yeah,
is a.
yeah. No, I get it. I get it. I think that's fascinating. And there's a cost for somebody to go through that qualification process. There are clear qualifications they can understand to see whether it's even worth
Yeah,
trying.
so I'll send you a link, and at the American Culinary Federation site, they can read through. There's a whole list. I think the whole certification process is a couple of grand. I think that's it, and
Yeah.
then that's good for a year, and then they're able to advertise that to the public. They get listed on a public displayed website.
Right.
So as we get more of these, again, sort of my job is to go out and keep educating the public that, hey, when you're traveling, which I'm doing more and more again,
Yeah.
as we sort of get back to reality, and you're saying, well, where do I want to eat on the road? Where can I go? And this restaurant pops up that, hey, this has got a CMAC certification. That's where I want to go.
Yeah, I think it's critical, and the reason, one reason I mentioned that is, there I've seen through clients, seen through restaurants that I speak with, and I speak with restaurateurs literally every day of my life. Okay, so lots of conversations, and there's a pendulum, right? The pendulum has been, I want to move increasingly to ocean to table, farm to table, etc., which has some overlying, characteristics with your qualifications, requirements. Obviously, maybe not entirely, but that's sort of and and then quietly, I've had to move back. I had to retrench because people didn't care, right? They didn't care enough to pay the extra cost.
That's true, but I do think that is moving back the other way now, and I think that a couple of things have pushed, as you said, the pendulum that way. From my perspective, a big one was COVID, and so what a lot of people found out with COVID was, one, they didn't know how to cook, so that
Right.
spurred a huge resurgence and interest in food. And then another aspect was that people wanted to eat healthier. And when we look at sort of that health conscious consumer market, of which, buying foods that are better for us, pay more to eat out for foods is included, that's growing at a huge clip. I mean, it's kind of estimated about worldwide, I think like 790 plus, billion. So it's
Yeah.
a huge
Wow.
growing market. But I think two big drivers in there. One that I found probably wasn't emphasized enough during COVID is the fact that one of the biggest risk factors early on, and still a big risk factor for health, was undiagnosed or untreated type 2 diabetes. Well, 90% of those cases are preventable with lifestyle like diet. So that's a directly diet attributable risk factor for ill health, things, like diabetes. And so I think in some sense, though it could have been communicated at a higher level, that is one reason that I believe it was 2 years ago, April 2020, they did a big survey in the U.S. And suffice to say that there's not often that you see 80% of the population want to do anything as a group anymore, right? We're such a bipolar country
Yeah.
and so divided. But far and away, it's like 80% of people said, I want to eat healthier, and I'm willing to pay more to do it. And
Right.
so I think that has shifted the public consciousness in a very real way, because people watch people die, and
I totally get that. Where on the restaurateur side, unfortunately, like the big chains are becoming increasingly sophisticated at blurring the lines, right? And that provides real competitive pressure. So when a big chain, or even you can see the language to describe ingredients coming out of the food suppliers given to restaurateurs, and the food was processed, right? But they are actually coming up with language that is confusing for the public, right? And that language is landing on menus, as a way sort of to uh, not intentionally fool the consumer from the independent restaurateur's point of view, uh, but um, but does end up blurring lines, for particularly from the chain to consumer point of view, from what I've seen, right? And so what happens is you'll have folks that are doing, all organic, in terms of, X ingredient or Y ingredient, and they're backing away from the organic definition, and they're using other words to show that there's there are natural aspects to it, right? um, because food costs have become so volatile and scary, and the number of times the restaurants have had to increase prices has become so hard. And so I think that the will is there, just as you've described it. The numbers, like the desire for that level of eating, is absolutely there. And I think that the CMAC is particularly valuable in bringing some clarity in a world in which clarity is not convenient in many cases. Does that make sense?
It does, and you hit on the two key words, which I'll even go a step further. It obviously, I think, is intentional, not only in what and how the chains are advertising, but just in what is presented to the consumer and what we call FOP, front of the FOB, front of the box,
Right.
in terms of what they're trying to sell,
Yeah.
and blur those lines. And I think a great example that everyone can relate to is plant-based meat alternatives.
Right.
Right? I do not recommend them. They have proteins in them that human beings actually have never consumed before. We have no idea what these things are going to do. They are the ultra processed of the ultra processed,
Yeah.
and yet the chains are serving, these creations.
Yeah.
They're being pushed by, people out in Hollywood. I forgot the producer's name, the big director guy who did Titanic.
Right. Cameron, something Cameron.
Yeah, James Cameron, right?
James
Okay, so
Cameron,
he's
right.
saying we got to do this, and you got to eat pea
Yeah.
protein because it saves the planet. Well, James Cameron also owns the largest pea production facility in Canada, so he's got a vested.
Oops.
Yeah, he probably didn't disclose that up front, but he's got a vested interest in people eating a lot of peas.
Right.
And I have nothing against world peace. I'm
Yeah.
all for it. But we have to be in the business of doing full disclosure. So. And I talked to so many people and given so many presentations and things where people say, oh my gosh, I went there today and got this burger because I thought I was doing something healthy for myself and I was helping the planet. And Chef Dr. Mike, you're telling me that I'm potentially poisoning myself? And it's like, absolutely. These are the ultra processed of the ultra processed. We have no idea what the long-term health outcomes and implications are, but simply based on the level of processing, these are toxic creations. And so, there's a great example, a mom and pop, a local restaurateur who is getting, grass finished beef locally, paying a premium for it, serving it to that customer, serving something real that's nurtured human beings for hundreds of thousands of years. Good data set there,
Right.
a lot of longevity, versus the drive-through chain, undercutting them with this conglomeration of ultra processed junk. And yet the consumer is thinking, well, I'm going to go over here because it's a healthier choice. And I'll even pay more than a regular, burger at this joint to get this plant-based product because I'm eating healthy. And so that is a challenge to get out there and do that. And that's where I am in trying to help, sort of my brethren, that are still out there in the kitchens and things.
I see the mission clearly. It's to
Yeah.
drive black and white clarity
Yes.
in a very gray world, right? And around an issue that is most important to social health, physical health, community health, family health, etc.
And I'll share something quick for your restaurateurs and folks to share with their customers is, well, how do I know if it's ultra processed or not? And this is not 100%, but it's something I give to our patients and our practitioners, is simply count. I say, keep it to 5 to stay alive. So if you're looking at the ingredient list, you don't even have to know what anything is.
Right.
If there's more than 5 ingredients listed there, about 85% of the time, it's ultra processed. So when you go, and here's a great example, right? You go into a store and you look at ham and you see this list of monosodium, blah, 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 phosphate, citric, blah, 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 something I can't read. Let me get out my organic chemistry textbook. And that's what the ingredients of the square, hot pink ham. And you say, well, let me look at a slice of prosciutto. Ingredients: pork, salt.
Right.
Yeah.
That tells everything.
It does.
So if I want to learn more about culinary medicine, to not just on the certification side, but as a restaurateur, I want to better understand it. Where are the resources?
So what I'd recommend is at the university we have a course for the general public that actually comes with a certification, a level 1 culinary medicine certification from the university, called Introduction to Culinary Medicine. It's 100% online. Folks can do that, get that certification. That's actually a great prerequisite for the Cmac, because then you're certified, you understand it, and it gives you the credentials and the ability to communicate that then and the message to your customers as a restaurateur. And you and I have talked earlier before we came on. I'm happy to come to those, work with those folks, as I have worked with healthcare professionals to go to your neighborhood, bring
Right.
the folks in and say, hey, Chef Dr. Mike from PBS is here. We're having a Q&A dinner. Come on in, learn about healthy eating. What is culinary medicine? And do that for the community. One of the great things about something like a PBS, and having a little media, background, is that we can then invite our local media to
Yeah,
participate.
you've got star power. That counts.
I don't know that I call it star power.
No,
It's really like
but it
flashlight
is.
power. Like
Yeah,
really, maybe 1,000 lumen flashlight power.
yeah. No, but you've passed through a threshold that, and I know you're going to be humble about it, but you passed through a threshold that enables you to highlight a message, right, more
Yeah.
effectively. And of course, you're still on that journey, right? That's a journey of building over a long time,
Oh,
but
wait.
that your presence in a market can help to drive local interest more effectively, right?
And let
That's
me
what
throw
you're
this
saying.
out to all your listeners and participants in your restaurant group, that if there are folks that are doing it sort of the culinary medicine way, if they want to either email you, or I'll give you have my email me directly.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
put all your information below the video so everybody can go find
and
all
maybe
these
we can
links
even
and
come and do
everything.
an episode about them,
Yeah,
featuring someone, and bring someone along and kind of show locally, where it's actually a good buddy of mine, who we're talking about it. And that's exactly what we may be doing next season with his restaurant up in New Hampshire, is showing where he gets his lamb and how he makes his pasta, and and bringing that together. So I'd love to sort of be able to do that for the folks out there and highlight them on an episode.
perfect.
So yeah,
Yeah,
if they're doing it,
I've got some
let me know.
people in mind that would be great great fits for you. People that are struggling with this, people that have probably already gotten through a lot of it, people that have the will but they don't feel like there's the way in their market. I mean, there's a whole range of great restaurateurs struggling with these issues,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean,
Um,
so many friends of mine, which is really what spurred us in the midst of COVID, because I work with the ACF on a number of things. Is say, like, we got to find a way to help identify and bring this message. And so that's what we developed together. And it really is a tool for these people. That's what we want it to be, because it also helps the public, and it's like it's win-win, and we're getting the word out, and people are eating healthier and supporting the people that are making that effort and taking that risk to do it. And gosh, they deserve to be rewarded.
that's right, and actually, that certification and that online course from the university is really good for chefs, also, right? And people in the cooking profession, not just for restaurant owners, but actually people who are in the back or doing stuff on their own independently. I can see the real value for them, not just in their learning and their ability to communicate to customers, but or to owners, right? In some cases, but also just from a marketing themselves point of view, right? It's really helpful to have that certification.
It is, and we've actually had a lot of chefs come through the program,
Yeah,
because we have a culinary school as well at the University of Montana, and it's exactly that. So we've had folks use it professionally, particularly when as chefs, they do, private dining. One of our students is a cooks for celebrities. So the celebrities are always like, well, I want to eat healthy and I can afford to do it. So, having that on her CV really helped her. We've had other chefs who've had the restaurants then be able to put on the menu, chef so-and-so is, certified in culinary medicine, has a level 1 certification in culinary medicine. And again, so when their customers sit down and, the chef is putting a little asterisk saying, this is a really highly recommended healthy choice. And it might be something like, grass stuff, finished, porterhouse. And somebody's like, how can that be healthy? And they look down and it's like, oh, well, this person does have some certification. Forgive the pun. They got some chops to be telling me this.
Yeah.
They've been able to use that as leverage and a means to communicate that, hey, they know what they're talking about. So, and we encourage them to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think they should. Differentiation is the it is the key driver of business success in our business. Obviously, your differentiation has to connect and resonate, right? But the way to not get lost in the crowd in the restaurant business or as a chef is to be crystal clear in your differentiated path forward, right?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
So I think that what you're offering is a step, right, that people then can pursue as an ongoing journey of their own differentiation as a professional or as a restaurant, right, as they dig deeper and deeper into, which is what's critical, because so many restaurant concepts, less so chefs, because I think chefs are always trying to evolve, but it's hard to evolve a business, right, because there's so many moving parts. They get sort of stuck in a static concept, and differentiation is a lifelong journey of moving it on a particular path. And I think what I see in that certification is a first step towards one path of differentiation for somebody and their business.
Absolutely, Peter. I mean, I should hire you for PR. I mean, that I could have said it better.
I'm in. I'm free for you, buddy. Trust me. I think this is really valuable stuff, and so let's make sure we get all the links for everybody below. Are there any other sort of core messages that you don't think we've covered that people really need to understand?
I don't. I think we really touched on some stuff. I think what's beautiful for so many of my colleagues who are in the restaurant business is, what we want to do is shine a light on what they're already doing, the path they've already chosen. And we want to be there, to help them achieve success in that journey. It's not about, oh my God, I'm going to do this because I can make a lot of money. These are the folks that have already been there and they're struggling. And, we want to help them and say, yeah, you're doing something great. Let's work together. And this really is a grassroots, because the pushback comes really at the international, huge kind of corporation level, where they're competing for their business dollars, and really I'm competing to get my message out, because it's a message that doesn't necessarily resonate in every area.
Yeah, well, you're trying to win hearts and minds, and there are actually a lot of folks out there that, if they have the information, I think will want to get involved. So let's push that message however we can.
Right.
This has been amazing, Dr. Mike. Really valuable. Thanks, for everybody. Everybody who's watching, check all the links below. I will try to identify them really clearly as to what's what, and maybe Dr. Mike will do a future episode where I'll come up and we can walk around and sort of see the culinary program and get to understand a little bit more what's going on the ground up there. That'd be fantastic.
Sure. Maybe we could do a live one from one of your restaurant kitchens, right?
Yeah. that would be fun. That would be really fun. Okay. Well, we'll have to talk more about that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Peter.